Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so here is the third video for Section 8, Chapter 2, the final video of Chapter 2. This video is going to cover a few more additional proof examples of angle proofs. So once again, every time that we do a proof, we start the same way, and that is with our given. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 5. Those two statements are our given information. Now, as with any proof, we should then look at the picture and decide if there's any more information that we can glean, that we can gather from that picture. So up in the picture, we have three sets of angles that we should know the property of. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 in that picture. And angle 5 is congruent to angle 6. Because all three sets of those angles are vertical angles, and the vertical angle theorem states that those angles must be congruent. So that gets us up to 5 congruent statements to work with. Now from here, we need to start our manipulation. Remember where we're trying to get is we're trying to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 6. So here's how that works. And this is going to be very amusing to me, maybe not so amusing to you. So watch closely and I will mark off the statements as we use them. We have a statement that says angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. We have another statement that says angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. If 1 is congruent to 2 and 2 is congruent to 3, then the transitive property says that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So our reason for step 3 is the transitive property. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 because 1 is congruent to 2 and 2 is congruent to 3, which means that 1 is also congruent to angle 3. Now the reason why I highlighted those in gray is we will not use those two statements again. So then in step 4, it says transitive property again. So we should try to do something similar. Please notice that in step 3, we state angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, and we already had that angle 3 was congruent to angle 4. So since 1 is congruent to 3 and 3 is congruent to 4, the transitive property allows us to state that angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. Now we should be starting to see a pattern here, folks. Watch closely once again. If angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, which is what we just stated, and angle 4 is congruent to angle 5, then that means that angle 1 is congruent to angle 5 by the transitive property. And finally, I bet you can guess what's coming. If angle 1 is congruent to angle 5 and angle 5 is congruent to angle 6, then that means that angle 1 must be congruent to angle 6 by, you guessed it, the transitive property. There is a proof on your classwork assignment that is very similar to this proof. All right, let's do another one, and it is the final proof of the chapter. This one is actually very similar to the one that we did in the previous video with the Supplement Theorem, only it shows an example of using the alternative, the Supplement Theorem. So we start with our givens. Angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair, is a given, and the measure of angle 1 is equal to 2/3 times the measure of angle 2. Those are our given statements. Now, just like we did in the previous proof, we're going to start off with the fact that angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair. If they form a linear pair, then our supplement theorem says that angle 1 and angle 2 must be supplementary. They must add up to 180 degrees. So our reason in step 2 is the supplement theorem. Now, just like we did in the previous example, we are now going to do everything that we can to turn this into an algebraic proof. Currently, we have an equation that contains two variables, but that's easily fixed with the substitution property by plugging 2/3 times the measure of angle 2 in for the measure of angle 1. So statement 3 should read 2/3 times the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. That's the substitution property. In step 4, what they've done is they've added 2/3 and 1 together to get 5/3. So they've added like terms. That is substitution simplify, just like we did in the previous proof. Now from there, you've been taught that you're supposed to get rid of fractions. So in step 5, they're multiplying each side by 3. The point of that being to clear the fraction. So that is multiplication property. First we show multiplying each side by 3. Then in step 6, we actually carry out that multiplication. On the left side, the 3's will cancel, leaving 5 times the measure of angle 2 is equal to 3 times 180 is 540 degrees. So to solve for angle 2, which is where we're trying to get to up here in the proof, we're going to divide both sides by 5. So 5 times the measure of angle 2 divided by 5 equals 540 divided by 5, because anytime we add, subtract, multiply, divide, or distribute, first we show it, then we actually carry it out. So this is our step that is labeled the division property. And then we actually finish the proof by actually doing that division. The left side, the 5's cancel, leaving the measure of angle 2. And on the right side, 540 divided by 5 is 108 degrees. Substitution simplify. That does it for that proof and for Chapter 2. Congratulations on your introduction to proofs. Hopefully these videos are helpful in getting your work done. Thank you very much for your attention and your time.